Good, how you doing?
I do. All right, let's roll.
All right. Good evening, everybody. All right, welcome to the first session of the 2026 Littleton School District Annual Meeting. This is the deliberative session, and I am your school moderator, Chad Stearns. We're going to go over the meeting information shortly, but if you could, please join me and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. We've got the flag over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. All right, basic room setup and introductions. Exits, we have one back there where we all came in. Bathrooms are through that door and around the corner to the right. Introductions for the school board. We have Matt St. John, Chair, Erica Antonucci, Vice Chair, Bill Gendro, Travis Howard, and Greg Cook, and Superintendent Steve Nilis. And I know we have several other department heads and up here tonight as well. A lot of people make the meeting and elections happen. Room setup, school staff, clerk, the school clerk, supervises the checklist, the ballot clerks, school and town staff, and many volunteers in general, and just thank you everybody for helping make tonight possible. Again, this is the first session of the 2026 school district meeting. The second session is the official ballot voting on Tuesday, March 11th from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Highway Garage. Tonight's session is the legislative session. You, the registered voters of the legislative body, we're here with a specific purpose. Our only purpose is to discuss the posted warrant. I'll read each warrant article. Someone from the school will present, and it will be open for general discussion. You, the voters, may exercise your right if you choose to question, deliberate, or amend the warrant articles. Once discussion is done, you vote to move articles to the official ballot for voting day. When all the articles are voted on, that concludes our meeting. For amendments, they must be submitted to me and as well as the school clerk in the back, Angie, in writing that we can read, and please do so ahead of time if possible. Littleton registered voters are permitted to speak tonight unless permission of the legislative body is given. Voters, you should have checked in with the ballot clerks and received your voting cards. This is what authorizes you to speak and vote. If you're not a registered voter, you're permitted to listen and observe, but you cannot vote. We do have a customary practice to allow non-registered voters to speak, such as district employees, anyone that wants to speak on a given article. The list so far we have for non-registered voters that wish to speak are Patricia Brown, the business administrator, Kelly Noland, director of student services, Rochelle Cox, CTC principal, Melissa Jones, DBMS and LHS assistant principal, and attorney Gordon Graham, the school counsel. Are there any others that did not get on the list that would like to? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to allow these individuals to speak tonight? We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye, or hold up your card. Either way. All right, thank you all. Those named individuals now have permission to speak. If there are others that would like to speak at a later date, please reach out to me so that we can vote to allow you to speak, and we'll go from there. All right, the rules of tonight. We have microphone right there in the center. When speaking, please state your full name and town of residence. If there's a vote to end discussion, anyone who is in the queue for standing will be permitted to speak. Everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Please address the moderator and not one another. Please make your point, be respectful of others' time. No personal attacks, let others speak. If no one else is in line to speak, then you can speak again. As you all know, we've been here many times. We do have the rules. If rules are broken, you'll be ruled out of order. You'll be warned if you do it again. Continuously, you may be asked to leave, but I don't think it's going to come to that. We're hoping for, this is one session, we're hoping to be able to finish tonight. I'm going to be severely disappointed if we cannot finish tonight. Wednesday's another issue. As a housekeeping issue, the body always has the ability to restrict reconsideration after a vote or several votes are taken. And I don't believe we have any historical housekeeping. Again, it looks like a short warrant, so I don't think we'll have to have a time limit to end discussions, which has been done in the past. So without further ado, we will start going over the warrant. All right. Article 1, to elect school district officials. The school board, 2 positions for 3 years. Moderator, 1 for 3 years. School district clerk, 1 for 3 years. Treasurer, 1 for 3 years. There's no need to vote on that because we can't really change or do anything about it. So that's more of a notice than it is anything else. Article 2, operating budget. Shall the Littleton School District raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $19,371,000. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $19,395,082, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous action of the Littleton School District or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 3-2, recommended by the advisory budget committee 5-1. Estimated tax impact is $10.35. Estimated default tax impact is $10.37. 2024-2025 district cost per pupil is $29,715. ELA proficiency 40%, math proficiency 40%, science proficiency 26%. And with that, I will, Mr. St. John will speak on the budget.
Thank you very much. I do share Chad's enthusiasm that we'll finish tonight and leave all the other nights in February to the select board. First, just a couple of points. Again, we can do as deep of a dive into this as you want. Obviously, we have the budget hearing for that purpose. But I'll just hit a couple of highlights. One, since I know the question will be asked, the school board vote 3-2 for the second year in a row is merely the function of the inclusion of the residency program. So the 2 who voted against can correct the record if they'd like, but I think I'm stating accurately that the 2 no votes were a vote against $100,000 of the $19 million that's proposed. So I would discourage you from considering or interpreting that as a vote against the budget in and of itself. To talk about the budget, the board, again, working with the administrative team and with the budget committee, tried to get as close to a flat budget as we could. And what you see ultimately in the summary document that was provided when you came in is a $499,000 increase at 2.64%, and then we'll deal with the additional warrant articles separately here in turn. I would note that as of this afternoon, the federal government's amount for inflation for the last 12 trailing months is 2.7%. So this budget essentially comes right in at that. And when you look over the last 5 years from our voted budget to what is being presented tonight for consideration in March, we are actually falling behind the pace of inflation. So if we were merely keeping track with inflation as it's been experienced over the course of the last 5 years, this budget would be north of $20 million. I think the district has done a good job of managing cost where it can. We have reduced administrative staff. We've reduced staff in the buildings. There's a number of different things that we've done to be as responsible as we can be, but there are some cost of doing business items that don't escape us, whether that be heating oil or health insurance, or the need to have competitive salaries to make sure that we have the dedicated and trained professionals to provide the services that we want to be able to provide, and in many cases are legally required to provide, of course, to the students that come into our buildings every day. So at this point, I offer that to you as some preliminary comments, and we can bring the moderator back up here and get into whatever detail you'd like and answer whatever questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, well, this will open up the night to questions that people may have.
This tilt down. Carrie Gendro, Littleton, New Hampshire. Education is the one thing we pay the most for and expect the least from. Our public education system is broken. It has been broken for a long time, and it is increasingly, and it's not just here, it is increasingly expensive, and there has been little to no meaningful and measurable results. Decreasing student numbers, controversial curriculum, and unsustainable cost. Test scores have hit 30-year lows. I am in no way wanting to cast blame on any one department, individual, group, etc. Students do learn differently. We are starting to see more productive, less expensive, alternative educational opportunities for our kids. So we have the cost of education, then we have the education itself. The cost per student here in Littleton is currently over $29,000. Actually, it's closer to $30,000, which is quite high compared to much of the state. I don't want to take a deep dive into the greed behind public education, but the NEA, National Education Association, is one of the most powerful and corrupt organizations in the United States. 2.8 million members and a $432 million a year budget. Becky Bringle, the CEO of the NEA, has a $495,000 annual salary. Who is paying for that? I would encourage you to watch the documentary, The Death of Recess. So according to state sources, Littleton has low to moderate income, housing costs have exploded, and wages have lagged behind. Many older folks and families are just one expense away from financial disaster and ruin. And I know many of you have heard this since our taxes have gone up. This is the trap. You spend 30 to 40 years paying off your mortgage. You finally own your own home outright. The housing market goes crazy. Prices spike and the paper value of your home doubles. The town reassesses and your tax bill skyrockets. Your Social Security pension or paycheck doesn't even come close to keeping up. You're house rich and cash poor. You're staring at a bill, tax bill, you cannot afford. Homeowners see school and municipal budgets climb while their wages barely move. Now we are forced to make some tough decisions. Take on debt that in older age just has to pay taxes. Sell the home we have raised our kids in. Cut back on food, heat, medicine, or car repairs. This is a slow eviction of the very people who built Littleton into what it has become today. In closing, back to the educational piece. Aristotle once said, the fate of empires rests upon the education of youth. We have to optimize, streamline, and cut. This is just a start. I would like to make a motion to reduce the Littleton School District's proposed budget by $2 million.
Well, hold on just a second. We do have a motion. Did you get a copy of this, Carrie, to? Okay. Oh, we just did a point of clarification, Angie. All right. Sorry. So we do have a motion. Do we have a second on that? While there's a motion on the floor.
I second it.
All right. We do have a second, which then opens that up to discussion. Is there any discussion on this? All right.
Can I speak?
Okay. Yeah, ma'am, you could speak. you can come up and speak, and then Mrs. St. John will afterwards.
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. I have to say this is probably one of the few times I've actually agreed with So I'm concerned, yes, it's gone up at the similar rate as inflation, but nobody's income's gone up that much. And all of our costs have gone up that much or more, because we don't count the volatile items in inflation, like fuel and housing and food, which are what most people spend their money on. To me, the fact that the whole time I've been in this town, the default budget has exceeded the proposed budget tells me that too much is being budgeted to begin with. Frequently, we get told by the board that, oh, they're generously returning a certain amount to the taxpayer because, I mean, it's like, well, it's our money, right? So it should be returned to us. We don't even, know necessarily what you've spent for the past year because it's not in here and we don't get vision on that, I guess. But I believe that the default budget should be what was spent last year plus the mandatory add-ons, not the budget from last year, because that is what was already inflated, which is why I feel that Carrie's proposal is a good start. At least let's get this down so that people can afford their food, et cetera. I was actually surprised to hear that the high school that has 300 students or 300 and some odd students has both the principal and an assistant principal. That just seems like a lot of, and then we have a superintendent for 3 schools. That seems like a lot for me. And I'm not pointing anyone out and saying that any one job is more important than another. It just seems to me that we're really high loaded on some of these costs. And just one I wanted to bring up is why are we paying tuition for a non-special needs student or students? It's in the budget, and that was one of the things that gave me a wake up. It's like we've not had that in the budget before, and I don't understand why. If his needs can be met, or if their needs can be met here, they should be met here. And if not, then if it's not special ed, I have an issue with that, because special ed is the one that we have a legal mandate to provide the appropriate education for. And that was just an example. I tried to go through the budget, but admittedly, I only started this afternoon because that's when I realized this meeting was today.
To your question about why we have out-of-district placement that's not special ed, this is something the board has struggled with, that we've discussed a number of times in public session. What it ultimately amounts to, in my editorial comment, is a really bad state law. And that state law allows, in certain circumstances, the superintendent to make a best interest designation that the board is required by law to uphold and to fund. And so there was a situation in our district where the superintendent made a decision, the details of which the board isn't even allowed by state law to know. And that decision that he made must be funded and upheld by the school board. There is no choice, there is no recourse, there is no discussion under the certain provisions of that law. I think it's a terrible law. We as a board have shared that perspective with our representatives in Concord in the hopes that they will seek to change the law. I think that the law as it's written leaves open to an interpretation that was not meant by the original writing. But nevertheless, as we've had council look at this extensively, the board has no recourse, but we share some frustrations with the way that went down, but that's just to speak to that particular issue. You also talked about it not being transparent, or we don't want to go into detail in this meeting. What we spend on, I would just point out that we do have a budget hearing. We are required by law that everything we do and spend and everything is public, right? So we adhere to all the laws that we're required to adhere to. Everything that we spend and every itemized and excruciating detail of the bill in public is discussed at length with the budget committee. And I'm sure they can point to how many inches thick their school word files are with all the paperwork that our business office gives them to detail all those expenses. To go back to Carrie's comments, well, actually, just stick with one more of Lego's comments. I would say, look, if you look at a $2 million cut, right, which is what Carrie has motioned it and you seconded. You start to ask the practical questions of where, right? You talk about administrative overhead here at the building. We've reduced administrative staff here at the building already, but suppose you just say, well, to hell with it, we don't need a superintendent. Good, that's 130 grand out of the $2 million you propose to cut. What do we do with the other 1.9? And I think as we've looked with the budget committee at the implications of how we start to cut back at cost, when you look at the details of the budgets by line, there's not a lot of flexibility, right? One of the things that you could do is you could double all the class sizes, right, and reduce some teacher count. That still is not going to get you to where you want to be from a dollar amount, and it's going to reduce the actual educational experience that the students have in the classroom, to say nothing of what it will do to your staff and teacher attention if you start to operate your buildings that way, which is only going to result in further driving up costs, because now you're going to need to be even more competitive to bring those teachers in. When you look at other avenues to control and manage cost, healthcare is a big one. You'll notice on the itemized spreadsheet that of the increases this year, 400,000 of that increase is on the healthcare line. Right? We've just, in a public session that we had an hour before this meeting began, just approved new healthcare contracts effective June 1, July 1 of 26 that we expect to result in a minimum $200,000 price cost savings for the district. Trying to manage that where we can. Right? There's a lot of, when I first got on the board, I expected that there was all this kind of discretionary spending, right, that could be managed, right? But when you start to look at the items and the details, right, there is not a lot of flex built into the system like you think there may be. So I would challenge the folks saying, well, let's just indiscriminately cut $2 million from the budget, to say, where are you going to do that, right? And to reference, speak to a couple of other points that Carrie made in her presentation. She talked about declining enrollment. We have looked at this with the budget committee. I believe it's over a 7-year period, starting presently and moving backwards. We have seen a 17% reduction in students. Corresponding with that reduction has been a 12.5% reduction in staff. So not perfectly one-to-one, but a reduction nevertheless, and an 8% reduction in inflation-adjusted budget. So I understand, we all understand, because we're taxpayers, that salaries are not keeping pace, that all expenses are going up at this number. But we can only control what we can control, right? I can't control other people's incomes, right? And so we have that reality that we have to fight and grapple with. And one more point, while I share in general some of Carrie's concerns personally about unions at the national level and what they've done to education, I will say, Travis is with me on the negotiations committee. He can speak for himself, but I think I speak for the both of us when I say we've had a great working relationship with both unions that we engage with here in the district. It's not been a problem or a challenge for us. And when you look at average teacher salary, both across the state and across the North Country, we don't stick out as an outlier. The average teacher salary here in Littleton, this is as from the New Hampshire Department of Education, using 24-25 data, the average teacher salary here in Littleton is just north of $59,000. Statewide, it's $69.5. And if you look at other towns, there are some above and some below. Berlin's at 67.6. Linwood is at 65. Haverhill is at 62.6. Profile is at 62.5. Lisbon is at 61.9, almost 62. Then there's us, and then beneath us you have White Mountain Regional, about $400 less. Hinsdale you have at 58.1. Gorham at 57.6. Northumberland, Colebrook, and Milton Brown, and Lisbon at 51.2. So I think what I'm trying to say is, from an average teacher salary perspective, relative to other districts and what other groups of taxpayers are trying to manage, this is not anything outside of the ordinary.
Maybe this isn't ordinary. I'm sorry, I should wait for the other people to speak. Someone else had wanted.
Can you just state your name again?
Lilo Reinstein. I understand, and I believe that teachers are critical, and we do need to educate and properly educate our youth, because they're the ones going to be making the money to pay for the rest of us to retire. or who are already retired pay for us to continue as we're going. And that's one of the things. And, just looking at some of the numbers that I pulled out, and while the superintendent himself, and again, I'm not trying to be, it's not personal, but that office is almost $400,000. The principal's offices are $700,000. And this is from the detailed budget that's on that I downloaded today. The business office is $375,000. IT is $536,000. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying that it's going to make it easy for everyone. And some things, if you have to cut certain things, maybe it cuts certain things that even the students want. But we also have to look at the education the students are getting, and the amount and the ability of the taxpayers to pay the amount that you're asking them to pay. It's going up. It's gone up significantly, and it's getting harder and harder for people to pay that. And what are we supposed to do? Move? Now, I've only lived here 8 years, but I'm pretty well settled here, I think. But there are people who live here their whole lives and would like to stay here until they're dead. That's what most people want to do when they get that old. Maybe they can't because your taxes are going to be so high that they can't afford it. Because this isn't just taxes. I mean, we have not just the school taxes. We end up with the town taxes, too. And for whatever reason, it's cheaper to run the town than it is to run the schools. And going back to some of the budget stuff, it appeared to me that water and sewer for like the elementary school were in the budget twice under different things. So I'm not sure what's going on there either. It got very confusing when I was going back and forth because I didn't expect to see a line item for water and sewer for anybody. So I may be wrong, but I just want to point that out, that it may not be duplication. It may be that it's coming in from two different places. But we need the school board to look at things and look at, we need the students to get a good education. And that's what's most important. But so is to be able to make it so we can afford that education, because otherwise you're not going to be able to afford it if everyone leaves town. Because there'll be no property tax, or the housing prices will go down and you won't have what you need. You'll have to raise it again, and we'll have no town, we'll have no students. And the kids still won't be getting a decent education. And I look at these numbers, and we were trying to find out what the state average is for proficiency earlier today, and what we got was we're a little bit under average. But that's not acceptable whether this is average or not. To be 40% proficient, and I'm assuming this is grade level proficient, that's embarrassing. I mean, I feel sorry for the kids. That's who I feel sorry for, because they're expected to then, when they graduate from this high school, they're expected to be able to take care of themselves. Do they know what they're supposed to know? Do they have the skill sets that they're supposed to have? I mean, that's a question I have now. And I don't have kids. I don't have to worry about it. But I do, because I was blessed with a good education from people who came before me in the town I lived in. And that's what we all should worry about. Yeah. I'm good. Thank you.
So a couple of thoughts. First and foremost, I do have kids. I have two in the system and one that fortunately is young enough too young to be able to terrorize the kindergarten teachers at Lakeway just yet, but she'll make her way there next year. I worry about these things too, both as a taxpayer and as a parent, but I'm certainly the solution to better math and ELA.
You got to pick up and go down.
Please, sorry.
No, you're good. Am I allowed to use your mic? But I'm sure the path to better English and math proficiency isn't by cutting 20% of the budget, right? So we'll start there. The second thing I wanted to mention, you talked about administrative overhead. I want to share another perspective with you and give you an update on something the board has been working on and has been talking about in public session and with the budget committee. And that's if you take the entire staff at the district office, right? So the superintendent, admins, HR folks, everybody that falls under that line, business office, everybody. You look at that whole line just by itself and isolate it. That also is not keeping pace with the cost of inflation. Even if we were to manage that, that's still well underneath the $2 million threshold that Carrie's proposing and that you seconded. The district is also actively pursuing, as you know, we have a superintendent opening that will be open come June 30th. We're actively working with 2, if not 3 of the neighboring districts to pursue creative arrangements around contracting for superintendent and more broad shared services. But even if we apply the most maximum potential unrealized benefit and we say, what if we just shared services to the nth degree with a neighboring district? That's $400,000 in savings, if we even get there, right? Which requires votes from all kinds of different boards and a lot of math and a lot of thought and a lot of pain. We're pursuing these things, right? But I just think there's not as much fat to cut as you think there is. I will add one more editorial point, which is this. If the democratic process is a beautiful thing. We're elected. We don't do this just for fun. You guys asked us to, right? So we're elected, and the 5 of us work with the 7-ish members of the Budget Committee over the course of several months to review this stuff in detail. And of course, anybody, any taxpayer is welcome to come in and say, we've done a terrible job or we should do it a different way. But I frankly, I think it is disrespectful to the process to come in and say, well, I don't know what you need to do, but cut $2 million. You guys need, what you're saying, both literally and figuratively, is you guys need to really take a hard look at this, which suggests we haven't and we don't, which we have and we do, through a process that plays out in public with 5 people that you've elected and 7 people who have been appointed to a committee, all taxpayers, many of them parents of students in the system, many of them have gone through the systems themselves. So we do take a serious look at this. We have been as careful as we think we can be to manage the situation. Again, I would argue you cut $2 million from where and how long are those savings sustained? Because the moment you do that effectively and you start to, let's say, lose kids to open enrollment, we'll talk about that later on in the evening, or you start to lose teachers because of any number of multifactorial reasons that are being driven by that budget reduction, then what? Cost of teachers gets higher, enrollment goes down, and we get caught in the same spiral that you're trying to avoid. So I would just suggest to you that the 12 of us that go through this process do take it very seriously, do look at it in great detail, and do so in public session. So at the very least, I would encourage you next year during this cycle to be a part of those meetings. They're all recorded, so you can watch them. And that deliberation does indeed happen. So I think I'll leave it there for now.
Tom Alt. I think the last time I was up here speaking with some feelings about the school budget, I was looking at the same superintendent that is back here again today. And that was 8 years ago. Everybody on that board, you do a good job. I serve on several different boards in town, and there's no thanks for it. You didn't sign up for it so you'd get a big badge to wear and swagger around. You did it because you've got some honest interest in the education system in the town. And I understand that a lot of these things that you are dealing with, you have one hand tied behind your back because of state mandates. But all that, I think, makes me want to just agree with Ms. Carey that the public education system is broken. It doesn't work like it used to. And when you look at the test scores, embarrassing is the right word. It's like, what the heck are we doing that we spend all this money to put a kid through this school system and 40% of them can meet the minimum standards of math or science or English? It's, again, something's terribly wrong with the system. And you can only work with what you have to work with within that system. I'll read just a little piece out of from a letter to the editor a couple of years ago with this school district. The school district projects a continuing decline of student numbers into the foreseeable future, and yet we continue to see the cost to educate a student climb relentlessly. As these increasing costs weigh on the property owner, taxpayers are not happy. The school district's stated budget philosophy is, I should say was, because that philosophy was removed from printing several years later, at the time, to responsibly manage resources by balancing the needs of the students with what the community can afford. The Rolling Stones tell us you can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you just might get what you need. The school district is telling us what they want, but it's our money coming out of our pocket. And if you exercise your right to vote, come March, you can tell them what you think they need and what you can afford. And so this was back in 2018, when the budget was $16,000, and the student enrollment was 741 students. Of course, inflation exists, so now we're up to 19 million plus. I should have said it was 16 million. Now we're up to 19 million plus, and we're down from 741 students to 613 students. No news to anybody on the board, I'm sure. So the student population has gone down 128 in 8 years, and meanwhile, the budget has gone up almost $3 million. So back in 2018, I made an amendment to reduce the budget by $600,000, which was under 4%. And after some negotiating with the audience, we got it down to $300,000, which was 1.8%. And when it went to the voters accepted it overwhelmingly, from like 900 to 100. Problem with this budget, one of them, if I'm a voter and I look at the default and the proposed, there's no choice. Why should I even vote for it? A yes or a no gets you what you're going to want. There's $21,000 difference in those two budgets. So I wish we could step across the border to Vermont where default budgets mean nothing. You vote your budget up or down, and if we don't like it, we give it back to you and you come up with a new budget. This default thing is a whole crutch on the system. But again, we're working with what we have. I think $2 million is a cripple. I do. I think the idea to reduce the budget some amount is not a bad idea. I think it's a good idea. And we'll give you what we want to vote yes on, and you can spend that money the same way you do at home with your budget. Here's what I got, here's what I need. I'm going to have to make a match. I know, and any good business owner in this town knows, that the biggest part of your budget, hands down, is labor. It's labor. And a huge part of that I know you say you don't have any control of is the darn health care situation. So when a new teacher comes in and somebody says, teachers don't make as much money starting out as others, well, add the $30,000 family insurance plan that they're getting, and they're doing pretty darn good. Littleton is way down at the bottom in Grafton County for the median household income, $54,000. We're below Lisbon, we're below Lincoln, we're below Plymouth, we're below Franconia, we're below Bethlehem, we're below all of them. $54,000. Our poverty level is 16% of the population in this town. And so there's a whole lot of people in this room that probably that 54,000 median home income is like, well, that makes me feel good. I guess I'm above that. But there's a whole lot of people in this town that are below that. And when somebody says here in the audience that they're standing on the brink with the taxes and everything, they are. And it's not your fault you represent 2/3 of the piece of pie for taxes every time somebody hands a dollar over to you, but that's the way it is. So I'd like to see for sure some vote on an amendment, and if I hurt any feelings about saying 2 million's too much, I think it's impractical and illogical, but we need a cut to give the voters a choice to do something here. Thank you.
I'll try to respond before Rudy yells at me. I see him getting up on the back. Thank you. I think those are very helpful comments, and a lot of them I agree with, by the way. I don't think any of us are on the board because we think that the education system is perfect. The one piece I want to push back on and strongly is this budget is not a budget of wants. If this budget were a budget of wants, it would look very different. If this board, at least for the 5 years that I've been on it, were bringing forward budgets and warrants of wants, they would both look materially and significantly different than how they look today. I will point to the biggest example, which is despite lots and lots and lots and lots of time invested and lots of taxpayer money invested, the board has foregone for the last 2 years in a row, this year being a second, another vote on the new elementary school bill, which we just came just shy of when it was on the ballot 2 years ago. We did that not because we don't think it's the right thing. We did that not because we don't think we have the right design. We did that not because we don't think we have the right property. We did that because we recognize that the cumulative tax burden, when you look at our budget, a warrant for what would be debt payment for a new elementary school, plus the town budget, the emergency town meetings, the increases in fees that the town is going through, would at the end of the day be totally unsustainable and impractical on the taxpayer, which we also are, right? And so I just can't stress enough, it is, I think, while I understand the sentiment and I appreciate it and respect your comments and what you said, I think it is frankly untrue to say that this is a budget that represents what we want. It is not, and Tom brought up a number of data points that I already spoke to, but just to say them again, yes, enrollment has gone down. So has staffing levels. Never one-to-one, because for every student you lose, you don't lose a teacher, right? Of course, our classrooms aren't one-to-one, but I think I said it was 17% for enrollment, 12.5% for staff. That includes administrative staff and overhead. And the budget itself has gone down on an inflation adjustment basis. I can't control the cost of oil, the cost to go ahead and take away trash and refuse from the buildings and so on and so forth. Right, so when you look at those numbers, they're all going down. There are only so many things that we can control as well. And again, I'll point to on health insurance, the renegotiations that we just approved an hour ago changed the math in taxpayers' favor with what we anticipate to be a minimum $200,000 savings. So this is not a budget of wants. This is a budget that we think is of the needs of the district. We don't think it's some sort of profligate spending. We're not giving every student gold bars and such on their graduation and matriculation, right? And so I think we need to keep that in mind as we deliberate the question in front of us and the motion that's been made and seconded. None of us take this responsibility lightly. We all get the same tax bill that you all do. We understand. But again, I would challenge those who are coming up and saying we need to have a $2 million cut. On what? On what? I mean, you're right. And by the way, I'm not here to defend the default budget process. I'm really not here to defend any state law, right? I'll leave that to somebody else. There's a lot of them that I think are bad and would like to see changed, right? But I do think the fact that our budget has come in under the default every year is not insignificant, right? That suggests that this isn't a budget of runaway wants. The fact that we've come in under inflation, it does not suggest that this is a budget of runaway wants, right? And so I would strongly discourage you from thinking about it that way.
Lilo, there are a couple people behind you.
Sorry.
Rudy Jelse, Littleton, New Hampshire. I definitely agree with 100% what Carrie said about the reduction of the budget, the school budget. Also, I would like to just change the. Okay. Also, I would like to say that the low income in Littleton, it's not 54,000. They got a lot of people on a fixed income, like me, $32,000 a year. Okay, it's not 54. But anyway, let's talk about numbers, okay? And I appreciate, what Matt, because he's a good friend of mine. We go to church together, and he does a good job. I want to talk about a little bit, some money. Littleton has got 109 students at the middle school. It's got 8 students on a charter academy. The high school, it's 224 students. And the Nordic Country Charter Academy has got 44 students. Now, the town budget for the year 2026, it's $11,527. $11,527. The school budget is $90 million. Now, I know you guys are pretty smart, no question about that, but you got to figure that the poverty rate in Littleton, it's 10% of the population lives in poverty, okay? And the employment office in Littleton, it's 4%, very high for the small town. As much you guys, try to take care of, the school and stuff like that. Education, it's number one, no question about that. But $19 million, we can't afford that. We cannot afford that. Now, the town, right, collects in the property tax $20,230,000 in property tax. And this is when everybody pays tax. Not everybody pays the tax in Littleton. We got at least 15% of the people that they say, you know what, I'm not going to pay tax this year. That doesn't mean that, we that pay tax, we got to just absorb whatever these people pay for it. And this year, all of this year, the delinquency and taxes in Littleton, it's $1,430,000 that the town is supposed to collect, and they never say a penny because the people do not pay. Now, that $19 million, it's a kind of, a little bit. I agree with Carrie 100%, man. If you guys go down about $2 million, I'm going to vote for whatever you request. But if you leave it, the budget the way it is, I don't think so you guys are going to go nowhere. Thank you very much.
Steve Kelly, Littleton. First, Matt, cut you a little slack about using the mic. As Ron Reagan was famously known to say, I believe you paid for that microphone, so you have every right to use it at your discretion. And we thank you for that. All the comments tonight, it's some great discussion. Carrie, I certainly appreciate your collective courage in pulling all those numbers together. It takes some courage to get up here and even to utter those figures, as others have done in the past, but not very often. And Tom, I certainly appreciate your input, and I remember what we did a few years ago, which was kind of somewhat of a token gesture, if you would, but an amount that could be lived with. Having gone through the budget committee process this year with the school, I think they've done as good a job as possible to trim this down as best they can, given the parameters within which they have to work. I certainly would like to see it be less, but I think that there's a lot of structure Your NEA comments, Kerry, I think are dead on, even though they may not relate directly to our situation here in Littleton. But the system is designed to drive up cost and gives the administration very little flexibility to move, certainly very little flexibility to move quickly on anything which you would normally do if you were in business. So as tough as this is, I certainly recommend that we keep the budget where it is and approve it where it is. But if you were looking for change, and we have had the opportunity to talk about this a little bit at some of our meetings, not that we would spend less money, but we would at least get a better result for the money we're spending. There needs to be more of a collaborative effort on an area basis, at least Littleton, Profile, and Lisbon, and you could even bring in White Mountain Regional, because we're all facing the same situation. Because we already do it in the vocational programs, if you would, by pooling our student populations into a combined class setup, first period of the day. We need to do that in more programs, and as close as we are together. But obviously, there's a lot of resistance. Towns want to maintain their local identity, have their own basketball team, football team, baseball teams, whatever the case may be. Having said that, we could have a combined football team if people actually wanted to do that. But I think that's the next step, and I'm not sure where the leadership is going to come from to do it, but it's going to take either some local area person with an awful lot of drive or some type of mandate from the state of New Hampshire. But I think given the circumstances within which we are allowed to work in right now, I think the school board has done as good a job as they can to produce a budget that works. I'm not happy with the figure. I'm not happy with the tax impact, but I'm afraid to say I think it is what it is. Thank you.
John Goodrich, I'm on the budget committee too. And I'll just tell you plainly that I don't like the budget. I voted for it. I don't like it. I think it's too much in terms of tax burden, but I didn't see any alternatives. My clear-headed neighbor, Tom Alt, made some pretty good points. $2 million is, I think, almost undoable. If you don't want to have a school next year, sure you can do that, but you would really dismantle the ability to teach in many ways. And so that's just too much of a cut. The scores that everybody's alluded to, I was somewhat, I will say, moderately pleased when the improvement in the scores from a few years ago in math is very visible. And so that wasn't getting recognized in the discussion. Now, am I satisfied with 40%? No, I'm not. I think that's not a good result. But it's in the right direction from where we were. And I won't even mention where it was, but it was in a single number. So, I too grew up in Littleton. There's always this thing about town and school. And I've heard it this recent year as we've debated our budget. The town is handling a lot more people than the school is handling a lot more people, a lot more employees. Again, Tom Alt made that very clear, than the town is. And I don't know a town of our size that isn't roughly 2/3 school and 1/3 town. If you go over to St. Johnsbury, where I served on the school board over there for a few years, it's more or less the same thing. It's not a whole lot different. I think we'd be penny wise and pound foolish. I am for changing the system. I like Steve's comments that he just made. When I grew up here, we had combined high schools. I think there's some value in elementary schools being local, so that every town needs a place to meet. They need a center. These small towns probably must have that, actually. But there's so much we can do with our students. I'm concerned about the value of the education we're giving to people now. And are our kids getting the best deal? Are they getting all the opportunity that they should have in their studies? I'm not convinced that we're getting there. And I think part of the problem is that we're restricted by low numbers, a small group in a classroom, and it's hard to get a teacher to every one of those things. You can't do it. So I think we need some working together in the region to be able to bring that together to a better level for our students. After all, why do we have a school? It's to learn. And we need people to learn. Our future depends on them. So other than that, I don't have a lot to add. I'm going to support the budget as it is and stick with my vote when I did it on the Budget Committee. But those are the reasons why. So thank you.
Mary Menzies, Town of Littleton. I'm going to support the budget and I'm going to support the school board. But I will start out by saying, do I share everybody's disappointment with our student results? Absolutely. Am I disappointed in the cost per pupil? Sure. But most of our costs are fixed costs. So the cost per pupil is just a matter of the total budget divided by the number of students. And as they've pointed out, you can't, you lose some students, you can't reduce the fixed costs that much. I would like to point out some what I think are bigger systemic issues. The school board essentially is running a business. And as anyone who runs a business knows, your largest cost is the cost of your employees. Now, yes, there's a union, but there's also a labor market that they do not control. So if they want to hire teachers, they have to hire teachers at the going rate, which they do. Am I appalled by the cost of health insurance? Absolutely. It's just mind-boggling. Again, is that something the school controls? Absolutely not. Bigger issues are mandates and requirements that are put on them by the federal government and not paid for. Mandates and requirements that are put on them by the state and not paid for. And then, of course, there's the whole way we pay for things in the state of New Hampshire. The state is very proud to keep their taxes down, but all that accomplishes is it pushes it right down to the taxpayer, the person who maybe does have a below average income, and it all comes out of property taxes. I'm not saying that this is, like, oh, well, we should, add a sales tax, we should add an income tax. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is if the only way you pay for everything is out of property taxes, of course they're going to be high. So in summary, yeah, that's just the way it is, and I support the school board in their efforts to keep costs down, and I support the budget. Thank you.
Dan Stearns, Budget Committee. I agree that with what both sides have said here tonight, and just want to thank the school board and the Budget Committee for serving and putting in all the time, which Matt alluded to, in reviewing the budget. And yeah, it may be too high, but what people have said is that we've got a framework or a system that is set up by government, and government is not like the free enterprise, and we've got things that, such as defined benefit plans that the town and the school have to contribute to, which for most people do not exist in the private sector anymore. So that is a huge part of the budget as well. So, so we're struggling with these things. And so, yes, the budget may be too high, and what Carrie says, I agree with you that perhaps there should be a reduction, but if people would come to the budget hearing, and if they would attend the budget meetings and the meetings with the budget committee and the school board when we go over the budget, they would see the devil in those details, and that there is very little wiggle room to cut without devastating our school community and the educational process. So just as a public notice for those people watching at home and in the future, that get out, attend your budget hearings and your school board meetings where the budget is discussed with the budget committee, and you will get an education as to what we go through. We do not rubber stamp this process, and so I just want to let that be known that we all are taxpayers and we are concerned as well, but we are all struggling with certain mandates and requirements that the boards have stated here tonight. So yes, it's not a perfect budget, but I think it's the best we can do, and we've got to keep working in the future to streamline and promote efficiencies where possible. So I'll conclude with those comments. Thank you.
I guess, and I haven't
Can you
attended
state your
because
name, please?
Lilo Reinstein. I haven't attended all those meetings that everyone says we should meet because I don't even know when they're held or how they're held. And if I went to every meeting between this and the select board, I'd never be able to do anything else. I elect representation because I expect those representatives to represent me. I shouldn't have to be there. But apparently we need to have some oversight because it's not being done. You know, it's not one-for-one student-teacher, thank goodness, but we have, unless it's changed drastically in the past year, we have a very low student-teacher ratio. It was like 9 last year, right? 9 students for every teacher. Is that really what's necessary to educate kids? Most of us were educated in classrooms that held a lot more kids. We right now have an average of 40 students per grade, at least for what the state says we have in our 13 grades, counting kindergarten. We don't need to have that level. We have continuing education. Do we absolutely need that? And I'm gonna mention something that for many people would be the third rail. But this is what happened in Claremont. I think it was last year, it could have been the year before. They couldn't get their budget passed, and they ended up having to limp along and get rid of their school activities. I'm not necessarily advocating that, but emergency situations require emergency responses. And you know, with everything that's going to hit the taxpayer, maybe Rudy's right, maybe more people won't pay their taxes. I don't know. But it's going to be hard for a lot of people to pay all their taxes and to pay everything because, you know, we're meeting this thing and this tax thing. And what I see here is we've approved something back in 25, 26 for last year, and in many cases the same thing is being put in the proposal for this year. I don't understand why the need is the same. And again, I say need, not want, because we should be looking at needs and then, if we can get more money, address wants. Because needs are what's important. It's not the teachers to be cut that's the issue, it's other things, because we need those teachers. But we don't need a student-teacher ratio that's 9 to 1 either. But we need good teachers. And we need the time and to teach those children. And I don't know what else they're doing in the classrooms, but when you have a 40% proficiency rate, there's something going on. And again, I don't know what it is. I don't know if these proficiency tests are just bad, but what are these kids who are in seniors this year, what are they going to do? That tells me they can barely read, at least not at grade level, not at their functional levels that they're supposed to have when they graduate from school. If they're at a 40% proficiency in English, 40% proficiency in math. I don't know what they test them on in math, but you know, They need to know math to function in this world. They need to know how to read, write, and do arithmetic. We've been teaching that in this country since before there was a country. So let's try to figure out how we can do that without spending this much money. Because education is not made better by more money. Simply throwing money at the problem doesn't solve it.
You can.
Heidi Hurley, parent, taxpayer. To your question, my daughter's a senior this year and has excelled at this school. So she's applied to 20-something colleges and has been accepted to 17. So to disrespect this school here, it's not right. So back to my questions. The students that we district out, is that reviewable every year?
Yes, 1 year.
1 year only. And when do we review it, or the superintendent?
At the end of the year, there is a new policy.
Okay.
Guiding that.
And who chooses the school they go to? The parent? So is it correct we pay for them to go to St. Johnsbury Academy?
That's correct.
Okay. And what is the cost per student?
24,000.
24,000? And we're at 29 here? Okay, just saying. I'm gonna go to the academy over here. How many students do we have in the academy?
In the Littleton Academy?
Yes. 26, and what is the total cost to run that school? Roughly? Okay. How many empty classrooms do we have here right now?
Are you talking like facility-wise?
Facility-wise over there,
I think Dale, we ran the numbers one time. Do you remember, Dale? It was like 50, yeah, it was a little less than
Not personnel.
to run the building.
to run the building, but with personnel, the whole thing, the whole,
Patty would have to include the 6 employees.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
okay. So how many, I'll go back to the question of how many classrooms do we have vacant in this school here, right here?
I don't know, Dale, the number kind of, in terms of rooms that don't have classes in them, probably close to 10.
10? Okay.
There's rooms that are repurposed for the things that's actually not classrooms.
So I don't know how many years ago, I don't want to put my age on it, but I think at least 12 years ago, 13 years ago, that building was condemned, and we continued to put students there, and we pay, somebody must know the ballpark figure for that whole building with students, staff, everything, I would think. So, and we have 10 classrooms empty here. Why aren't we utilizing the space here for them and shutting down that building? We heat it, we maintain it, we probably have to fix it more than we have to fix, I shouldn't say Lakeway, but, no, I'm not gonna say Lakeway.
Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but the staffing would not change regardless if they were in this building or over there.
Right, we would still need the teachers and the parents that run that program, or any of those kids may need to be.
How many teachers and paras do we have over there?
3 teachers and 2 paras.
Okay, for 29 students? 26, okay. I'm just saying that we continue to support that building that was condemned probably 12 years ago. And we have 10 empty classrooms here. Why aren't we utilizing the space here? Have we ever thought of that?
We have.
We have, okay. And where do we stand on that?
I think facilities committee, board, the way the board operates, typically things come through the facilities committee, so that's something certainly the committee can take up again.
Okay.
To look at those possibilities.
I'm going to bring up the residency program. I've not been a fan of it. Oh, laugh, Matt, I know. But I haven't been a fan of it since it was here. How many years ago? 5 years ago? Has it been 5?
Correct.
Correct. Okay, how many staff have we maintained from the residency program
We have one in district,
in 5 years?
correct.
And we pay for their housing? Or we will be?
Yeah, the residency program, their housing is paid, they get a stipend, they get their tuition.
So in 5 years, each year there's how many residents?
The first year was 6, second year was 4, and 4, and then this year there's 2.
Okay.
Well, actually, next year,
And we only maintained one
correct,
in 5 years?
correct.
And we continue to bring that program back for the purpose of what? Tell me why. What does the district gain out of that? I mean, $2 million over 100,000, I'm not gonna, no disrespect for the 2 million. Go ahead.
The residency program is my favorite topic.
I know it is.
We're here talking about cost savings. Let me make it real simple. For $100,000, we get 4 full-time employees, fully loaded with benefits. Because we pay $100,000 and we have a matching grant that's contingent on us having the program for an additional $100,000. So for $100,000, we get 4 essentially full-time employees for $25,000 a year. So if the argument is about fiscal responsibility, my argument is and has always been that to get 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever the number is, but the budget allots for 4, qualified, dedicated professional staff in the classroom with students to help us fulfill some of our educational needs and in some cases some of our legal requirements for $25,000 a year is an absolute unqualified no-brainer regardless of whether they stay here and take on full teacher contracts or not. I have never viewed the value proposition as the program to be about whether or not they stay. It's always an added bonus if some do. And one has, 2 have. We don't know what the future of the program will provide. But that, to me, has never been the value proposition. It has been bringing in folks into the classroom at an incredibly inexpensive rate to provide educational services to our students and to provide support for the staff. I have children that have gone through classrooms where there have been residents. It's been a great experience for them. We did talk about this at some length with the administrative team and with the budget committee. The residency program goes away. We never know, obviously, from year to year what the special educational needs are of our student body. That changes year to year, right? And if that were to change and we were to have to bring in a bunch of paraprofessionals to replace, because what we've done with the residency program is we've elected not to replace some retiring paraprofessionals in some cases. We'd have to go out and hire more people, no matter who you hire under what circumstances. Fully loaded staff is going to be a whole hell of a lot more than $25,000. So that's the residency program in a nutshell. That's why I've continued to support it and will continue to do so. It just makes plain good sense mathematically.
I understand your theory of it and trying to help me understand it, but when I believe, I don't know what the true facts are, of the homeless population in Littleton, we're supplying housing for staff when people don't even have a roof over their head, that children attend our school district. So it's very hard to explain to somebody who can't afford an apartment that the district's paying for them for their housing, and they don't stay here to pursue their career here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in charge of housing for the
I know.
town, so I can't speak to that. But I would just say, look, one of the arguments I've always made about the residency program, and I make in general, is that because of the reality of the labor market and education in 2026, this district, regardless of what happens with this question or this motion or this budget or this deliberative session, is going to have to get increasingly creative to come up with ways to find and then retain qualified staff at the levels that it needs to provide the services that it needs and wants to provide. It's no different than why we're pursuing shared services with other districts for superintendent and other things. We're trying to do all the creative things that we can do. But the labor market is the labor market, and we can only control so many of those drivers. I'm not suggesting you're supporting the motion that we've been talking about for the last hour to cut $2 million, but just to speak to that, if you do that, right? What do you think that's going to do to
Hey,
your labor?
I'm just
I don't
looking
know.
for the 100,000
I
of
got
the
you. I'm just
residency
saying,
program.
my point is, in general, there are things that are beyond our control that I think folks think are within our control, right? And there's only so much that we can do and we can manage and maintain. We're being, in my view, as creative and as responsible as we can be to drive these issues. To me, the residency program is an amazing example of that, and it totally scrambles my brain when well-respected fiscal conservatives, present company included, because you have that reputation at Sterling, argue against $25,000 for an employee. It just doesn't make sense mathematically.
It makes sense percentage-wise that you only have one person for 5 years.
Yeah, but they still work while they're here. We still get their
That one
services that we
person.
pay them for. No, while they're here. You're talking
Right.
about do they stay after the
They
program?
don't stay. There's no long-term commitment.
Cool.
That's all I'm saying. We're paying for their housing, all of this, and we gained one person in 5 years of the program.
I just want to be clear about language because words matter.
Right.
We pay them for their housing, we pay
Right.
them, and while we do that, they are employees.
Right, I get that.
You're saying we don't get benefit after we stop paying them.
I
I'm
feel
not
like we're
disputing
being
that.
used for housing and a year of employment for them.
I don't think we can take the
No.
position that we're being used when we get the services that we pay for.
Okay.
I don't think we're being used by any of our employees.
Okay. All right. My other thing, no, I don't need you now. I'm sorry, I'm on to something else because we love to fight about the residency program, which I don't agree with because we have a homeless population here and we're paying for a very nice luxury hotel, apartments here in town. So my question is, Carrie, not to disrespect your $2 million, but seems a bit high to me when we keep on taking away from the children in this town. And the children are the future of this town, for them to stay, to purchase homes, to get the education that both of my children received here and have done very well academically here. One came back to give back to the community by being a third grade teacher in the classroom she was taught at. So $2 million to take away from, it's going to be taken away from the children. That's what's going to happen. I ask you, are you going to do, I hope this happens on the town side too, because it seems like it's always done on the school side. You know, I mean, we cannot keep on taking away from the children. I know that people are upset about, you know, the enrollment, things like that, but we continue to take away from the kids, and that's where it will come from. It will be taken from. My other question is for the hiring of the principal of the high school with the middle school enrollment low. Are we going to combine that position back to years ago when it was just one principal? I mean, that would cut costs instead of a middle school and a high school principal? Are we considering that?
We've already reduced administrative, I think I have to go back to the mic, could I
Yes.
yell?
Thanks.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just saying that the enrollment's going down, and we're going to continue to hire.
Yeah, we don't functionally have a principal at both, right? We have a principal and assistant principal, and then we have a principal of the CTC. We've reduced in the last 2 years the number of administrative full-time professionals in this building by 2, right, with the Dean of Students position and the combination of the CTC. So the board is in agreement that we shouldn't have excessive administrative overhead. We brought those numbers down, but we do not have 2 principals, one at the high school and one at the middle school.
Oh, we don't?
No.
Okay. That's not what
missing
I've been
something?
told. Okay. Oh, okay.
You want the mic?
No. All right, that's all. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Mary Menzies, Town of Littleton. I don't know what this whole thing is with the residency program. I will speculate, because other people are speculating with no basis, so I'll speculate with no basis. That perhaps some of the teachers have their noses out of joint because they feel that these, little student teachers are getting some special treatment. They get housing, they only have to work 4 days a week, they're getting their education paid for. I don't know, that may be, what's at the basis of some of this. The fact that we have limited housing in town and we're paying for housing is just two completely separate arguments that has nothing to do with each other. If we only judge this program on the basis of how many long-term employees do we get out of it, sure, it looks like a failure. We only got one long-term employee out of it. I think the point that Matt is trying to make is that they get value out of these student teachers while they are working here. Whether they stay or not, they're getting value out of them while they're here at a very favorable cost. So here I am up here speculating about which I know nothing other than 4 people for $25,000 each looks like a pretty good deal to me. Thank you.
I think we got one more speaker, and then hopefully, if everybody's satisfied, we might be able to have a vote.
Carrie Gendro, I just want to back up a little bit too, and because I was remiss in not thanking the select board, and my husband is on the select board, and if I want to ride home, I want to thank him for school board for all his hard work and all.
No need to thank the select board.
Not yet. But sitting on the select board for 6 years, I know how hard it is to put in the time, and you in the budget committee, just absolutely amazing. So a lot of hard work. So I know I was remiss in not thanking, and all the hard work of course, Mr. Moderator and the others that make this happen. So that does not go unnoticed at all, and very much appreciate that. I went through and Mr. Alt and with Mr. Goodrich and some of the other comments, Mr. Kelly, I really appreciate those comments. I did not randomly just pick $2 million. I actually compared it to, Bill and I a few years ago went through our personal budget, and we looked at it and said, well, we can't get rid of that. That's a good one. Well, we can't reduce that. That's good. So as I was thinking about that, every single thing is good. It's good. But at what point do we say, we've got elderly people, literally, and I can't tell you how many I have heard from that are at the crossroads. They don't know what they're going to do because they cannot afford the taxes. And we haven't even hit the town portion yet. So I am just sharing, I am the voice for them. And I went through each of this line by line and said, all right, if it was just a 10% reduction or 15% reduction, or maybe here it's a 5% reduction, you would not believe how fast $2 million adds up without a huge, significant slice. We did it. Companies have to do it. We do it personally, but not to say that not everything isn't good. And on a personal note, I graduated from Littleton High School back in 1979. I'm very, very happy with the school system. I was not a good student, but I could read and write, but I was not a good student. I was more the hands-on I wanted to do. So I was not the traditional cookie-cutter student that Rockefeller, back in, 1926, when he did the cookie-cutter school system, so that he would program students to work in the factories. We're so beyond that now. We need to work with the students. We need to, that's why there's charter schools now. That's why Epic Academy, and they're thriving. They work with those kids. What are your goals? What are your talents? Even our own daughter, we had her in Lakeway Elementary School till 3rd grade. and pulled her out. It just wasn't working. So I know homeschooling doesn't work for everybody. I know private school doesn't work for everybody. Public school can work. I was talking to a gentleman 2 weeks ago, and he very much concerned about the brokenness of the education system. Got a group of parents together and said, all right, what would you really like? If we only had X amount of money, what would you want your children to get? And one parent said, I want to just make sure they're picked up on time with the bus. Another parent said, well, I really want him to play or her to play sport. Another parent said, I want a good music program. Not one of them, not one, said, I want my child to be able to read, to be able to do math, and to be able to, all the academics. Not one parent mentioned that. And that was just 2 weeks ago. That's disturbing. So we actually have a couple different issues here. One, it is on the backs of the taxpayers to pay almost $30,000 per pupil. And really, what are we seeing for it? I know personally, I don't mind paying. I don't. I'll make sacrifices on our home end to be able to pay if we're seeing the students become proficient. But unfortunately, and to Heidi's point too, I think there are some rising stars that do very, very well. There's no question about that. But where are the majority? And I am extremely concerned from that perspective. So we've got the educational piece of it, and then we've also got the economic piece of it. And it right now is on the backs of about 2,000 taxpayers. That's it. And people will say Littleton is a small, 6,000 people, but we're really a small city. And a lot of this is on our backs. And it's just, something's got to give. Did I answer all your questions, Heidi? Where'd she go?
No, I'll address that.
Okay.
All right, I think we've debated this quite a while, so I think we're going to, what I'm going to do now is read the article as amended, and then I will ask to vote.
So, point of order. So a motion was made and seconded. We have to vote on the motion, and then you would read the article as amended, right? So
No, the amendment was motioned.
it was, yeah, motion, but not vote on it.
Right. So what we're doing now, we're going to vote now on the amendment before we vote on placing the article on the ballot.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So first, I will read the article as amended. Well, yes, as
Read the amendment right now. As the article is amended, he's going to read that, and then we will take a vote on if we want to accept that amendment or not. And then if it's accepted, then it will be voted that you want to place it on the ballot.
My point is you can't call it as amended because they give the vote
with the proposed amendment.
Just read the amendment.
The amendment is to cut $2 million off the budget.
That's the motion, that's what we're
That's
voting
it.
on.
Are you in favor of doing that or not?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, but I believe, and I haven't had a chance to talk with school council, but I think I have to read the amendment.
All you have to do is say what I just said.
Okay. Well, that's school council then.
Cut $2 million from the proposed operating budget.
All right, so with school council's guidance, well, that's how we'll phrase it.
Perfect.
Are you in favor of cutting the proposed budget by $2 million? All those in favor of cutting the budget, please hold up your yes card. All right, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 8 yeses, and all those against, please hold up your no cards. I have 25 no's, so the no's have it. All right, is there any other discussion on the article? If not, all those in favor, please hold up of placing it on the ballot as presented. Please hold up your yes cards. All right, all those opposed, hold up your nose. All right, the yeses have it. The article will be placed on the ballot. Article 3, deposit to district facilities CRF, to see if the Littleton School District will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $574,000 to be added to the school district facilities maintenance capital reserve fund previously established in 1993. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0, recommended by the advisory budget committee 6-0, estimated tax impact of 43 cents.
Good evening. Bill Gendro, I'm the vice chair. I'm also on the facilities committee. Normally, we're asking for $50,000 or $100,000 for the CRF fund. As a facility manager, which is my full-time job, one of the things that I brought forward was that normally what a budget looks like is 1% of the building total. It actually can fluctuate between 1% and 4%. What we've been doing year in and year out is getting $50,000 or $100,000 potentially, and then hopefully at the end of the year have some extra money to try to scramble and get work done around the schools. It's very costly doing things that way because we can't always get contractors quickly, or sometimes we do get the contractors, but there's a premium that you pay on short notice. So it makes it very difficult for the facilities team, especially Dale, who does most of the planning, to be able to long range put things out there. And so talking with the budget committee and as well as the school board, I said, let's bring this up to where it should be so that we can start doing some long-term planning and addressing the needs of the buildings. So that's why we're looking at $574,000, because our complex is $57.4 million, so it's 1% of that. This is something that we would do year in and year out. Part of it also is to play catch-up, because we're deferring maintenance, which is costing us as taxpayers even more money, because things are deteriorating beyond where they should be. Any questions regarding this article?
You answered some of my questions when you discussed that.
Can you state your name?
Lilo Reinstein, Littleton. But there's a couple more, and that is, I mean, my biggest question would be, why have we been deferring maintenance? If we have things that need to be done, they need to be done. And when you defer maintenance, you know this, and any homeowner should know this, if you just keep deferring it, things get worse. And it cost a lot more to fix something if you just push it off. The other thing I have is, this is just again, it's a percentage of what our buildings are worth. Is there a list of things that need to be done, and has that list of things been analyzed to determine what the cost of that would be?
We do have a 5-year plan, and actually I think we have a 10-year plan looking at the big items, but a lot of this is day-to-day stuff. All the HVAC units all have to be serviced annually, and when the money's not there, that can get cut. So these are the things that we're trying to avoid doing. But yes, there are things that are on the list that will be addressed with these items. You know, I'm not sure where Heidi got her information, but that school is not condemned, but it does not meet standards and codes, which could be addressed if the finances are there. So I'm not, I would throttle somebody if we were putting children in a condemned building. That is not a condemned building.
Well, on that, you just mentioned HVAC. Shouldn't that be in a standard operating budget, not for something like, you said HVAC servicing.
That's what this
I'm
is
like,
for.
why hasn't that been in the budget every year for the past, whatever the life of since these were installed? I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
We've never operated that way.
Well, shouldn't you operate on what your expected costs are? I guess that's where I have an issue, is that these things just seem in many cases to be numbers taken out of the air. You should know what your actual costs are from year to year, or what they should be, and that should be what's in the budget.
So I'm just going to correct that. I don't think you meant what you said. So HVAC, annual operating expenses, maintenance, that is part of our operating expense. what happens is if there was a catastrophic failure in the HVAC, so let's say we lose a major component, and I'm not an expert on HVAC, so whatever their names are, but a major component on the roof, that's a $100,000 replacement. That we obviously don't build in our operational expense because it's an item we don't expect to fail. So that's what the funds would come out of this. What Bill's saying is we're looking to increase this to a level that we should have had for years, but what we've done over the years is we've tried to be respectful to the taxpayers. We've also been trying to pass a Lakeway building, so we've been trying to be cautious how much we put into this fund. What's happened is we've had a couple of instances where we've been caught with not having enough money in this funds when a catastrophic event has happened. So as far as operational maintenance of the buildings, that is in our routine budget. You're absolutely right, and that's where it should be. This is more for a catastrophic failure or a capital item that is nearing end, and we know that in the next 5 years we have to replace a refrigerator.
Okay, but okay, so you're going from, you said it was 50,000, so we're going from 50 to 500,000 in 1 year. You know, that's, I can understand wanting to take, I'll call it corrective stuff, but doing it in 1 year when everyone's facing budget problems, every person is an individual, when we look at taxes, that's really unreasonable to try to get to that point in 1 year. Because I read, I think it was in the local paper where you want to get it to the point where it's at 1.7 million. Great. So with 574, it just takes you, 3 years and you're up there. Well, if that's a, quote, nest egg, which is the term I saw in the paper, nobody gets their nest egg done in three years. We've all, those of us that have retired or you're looking at retirement, you're saving towards a nest egg. That's what we call them. Well, you're not going to get it in 3 years of saving. And that's my concern. Again, this is a lot of money, and to come out all at once for things. And I'd like to make sure that we get the maintenance done that needs to be done this year. And where we know something's going to fail, and let's get it to it before it's going to fail this year. And put that in the budget. Now, I don't know what it would be because I'm not involved in these buildings, but over $500,000. And again, I will go back to what the person said about combining the two schools. If we're underutilizing one building and and the other one's not necessary, I don't understand why. What I read a couple of years ago was that they were afraid that the middle schoolers didn't want to be with the big kids, or couldn't handle being with the big kids. But there are so many schools out there that are junior, senior high schools that have 7 through 12 in them. I'm sure they could adapt to what that world is. It's a difference. They're no longer the big kids on campus, they're the little kids on campus.
They currently are 712 in this building.
Okay.
It is currently that.
So I guess I just want to, the main thing is this is a lot of money, and is it really necessary for 1 year? Yeah, okay, let's get 50 grand or 100 grand put in this reserve fund and build it. I mean, I'm not saying don't build it, maybe it needs to be, but building it, going from 0 to 100 in a year is, I don't think it's reasonable at all. And I think most voters realized that was what was happening, we went from 50 to 500 overnight, they'd choke. I mean, a lot of us have homes. We have to do things on our homes, either for repair or for new things because the old one is getting ready to fail. And we don't just, decide that we're going to pull it out instantaneously, and we have to figure out when we can afford them and work that in. And yes, we all have the issue of failures, and you don't want failures. And that's why I'm saying, let's make sure we have enough to cover what's there, plus maybe 100,000. When I say what's there, what's gonna fail, and what needs to be done in maintenance this year, rather than that kind of thing. And you mentioned that there wasn't enough to do certain things, but we're getting back 200,000 this year, supposedly. It's in the budget thing, right? And I'm like, well, why are we getting money back if it's needed? We need to maintain the buildings because we have to educate the kids someplace. So yes, there's extra classrooms, but the building can't fall apart around, just in one classroom. So we need to do that. So that's my concern again. It's just a whole lot of money.
I just want to say that the reason we don't have $574,000 in the capital reserve fund right now is because putting $50,000 and $100,000 a year hasn't worked. That's it. That's the bottom line. So that's why we keep kicking cans down the road. That's why we have deferred maintenance. So it's either we start, and this isn't going to solve it all in 1 year, okay? But it's trying to quit kicking the can down the road and start getting on top of things. That's what we're trying to do.
It could be a straw that breaks the camel's back for a lot of folks.
All right.
Share a microphone.
Go ahead.
Steve Kelly. Just trying to remember back to when we discussed this at the Budget Committee, and I know that we made the commitment, obviously, to take this rather significant hit in 1 year. But having said that, it doesn't mean that this is going to be the same amount every year going into the future. We're going to feel our way as we go, develop an experience mod on what actually rolls out. And the other thing, too, I think at one time we talked about possibly taking these funds out of our unexpended funds at the end of the school year. That is no longer the situation. So whatever the money the school has to give back to the town at the close of business on June 30th will still come back to the town. Is that correct?
So we can't, here's the challenge. We can't make a forward-looking promise, right? Lilo said, you should budget for the things that you know are going to fail. Well, that's not how it works, right? So I can't say with any certainty that that means that every dollar that we have over that 5% retention goes back. I will say that's what we're trying to do with this effort, right? So context matters and I've been failing all night to explain math, so I'll try again and see if I still fail. But here's the reality. We have a budget that gets, God willing, passed, right? That budget has some, very little, what the state allows, built-in flex, because you never want to run where every single dollar is accounted for. Then if anything happens, bad things happen, yes? So then the state allows us to retain a certain percentage, right? And then the rest, we either appropriate or allocate those unspent funds, or we return them to pay down taxes. It's how it works. It's how it works everywhere. The other part that I want to stress in terms of important context is this. We took up this warrant article, which is Bill's idea and a great one, in part in response to the situation with the sewer warrant on the town side, the emergency meeting for the additional spend, and then the projections of what spend might come in the future. So we actually think, counterintuitively to the points that have been made from the floor, that this is a more responsible and transparent way of putting in front of the taxpayers a situation that says, let's start to get out in front of this issue now, so that if, God forbid, something does happen, we're able to tap into that money appropriated from taxpayers, as opposed to have to call a bunch of emergency hearings and appropriate more money over and above what's already been budgeted for. That gets back to one of your original questions, which is, this is not the board saying that it needs to be $574 or whatever the number is, $1,000 in perpetuity year over year. That's us saying we want to start based on the calculation formula that Bill presented and talked through, and then we evaluate on a year-by-year basis based on a number of factors. We want to keep that flat, we want to reduce it to zero, we want to cut it in half. We'll take and evaluate it, but we think, especially in light of the situation on the town side, that this is a more transparent way to try to plan for these things. Do we think the end result is more of the unspent balance goes back to pay down taxes? Yes, that's the hope, right? But we can't guarantee what will happen. The last thing I want to say, Bill's smarter than me on many things, facilities especially, Bill and Greg do a great job, but I want to be clear, we do not defer major maintenance in our buildings. These buildings are safe for the students and staff that are here. We tried to make fiscally responsible decisions on behalf of the taxpayers, but there are many things that we have done and will continue to do. We are not trying to have some future version of the school board or some future composite of taxpayers be left with some sort of bomb with all these, surprising things and failures. We try to maintain these buildings. I think the facilities team and the facilities committee do a great job of doing that.
Thank you.
Oh, Dan, hold on. Ma'am, would you like to?
Amy Sharp, Littleton. Just to make sure I'm reading this notes correctly, is the current balance of the school district facilities maintenance capital reserve fund 220,000? That's a yes.
Yes.
Are there definite plans to spend? Are there projects that for that 220,000 or?
Yeah, we actually have, we're looking at the boilers over in the academy currently. They are at end of life, and that's one of the projects that we're actually working on to address. We're probably a couple of years out from the floor being redone in the gymnasium. I wish I had my sheet in front of us because we have quite a bit of monies that is out on the horizon that's going to need to be spent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deanne Stearns, Budget Committee. Just thinking back to our budget meetings, was the delay or no further action on Lakeway figuring into this to put a little bit more in case some unknown issue developed at that building?
Are you talking regarding the bounce on the second floor?
No, but just in general for maintenance and for
Yeah, we definitely are putting money towards maintenance in Lakeway.
Right, yes, but this fund and the amount also would help if some unforeseen issue developed at
Yes.
the Lakeway
Yes, because
facility.
this fund is spread out over all the
All
school
three,
buildings.
right.
Yes.
But, okay, thank
Yep,
you.
You're welcome.
Quick question. Heidi Hurley. Bill, regarding the academy, I believe years ago it was condemned by some, I have no idea. Okay. So all the floors have students on them, all 3 floors?
No, the top floor cannot.
And why is that?
Sprinklers.
I know, right? Just say it's condemned. Well, it's no different than the Park and Rec building. That's condemned, but we still use it, so.
Yeah, and Al, if you're a historian, so if you correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Smitty, can you just
But-
explain it?
But I believe the stairwells that go to the third floor are not compliant with width, so that you can't, for students. So they can't use the third floor. The third floor now can only be metal storage. There's nothing, that can't be anything flammable. The main floor and the bottom floor are usable for the number of students that they have.
Okay, but we're going to invest more money to maintain it and fix it up when we could put them all here?
It's not just about the academy though, because it's about the gym use as well. So there's still.
Well, I love the gym.
Yeah, that's the other uses, we have the gym, yeah, for sure.
There's the academy program, but then there's still the gym that's being utilized.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of placing the article on the warrant as presented, please hold up your yes cards. All opposed? All right, it goes up on the warrant as presented.
Mr. Moderator, can I make a motion to restrict consideration on Article 2?
We have a motion to reconsideration on Article 2. Is there a second? We have a second. All those in favor, please hold up your yes card. Yes? All right. All opposed, please hold up your no card. All right. Reconsideration on Article 2 has been restricted. On to Article 4. If I can find my page. All right, Article 4. Transfer from fund balance to district equipment. Shall the Littleton School District vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to the school district facility equipment capital reserve fund previously established in 1964, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st? No amount to be raised from additional taxation. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the advisory budget committee 6-0. Anybody like to speak on this? Oh, there we go.
So this would be for district equipment, district-wide, and it would come from the fund balance at the end, so there's no tax impact on this one. Does anybody have any questions?
Lilo Reinstein, sorry I keep coming up with questions. There's numerous places in the budget where there is equipment for different parts of the school district itemized. And that's separate from this.
Yes, this isn't budgeted.
So, but I guess what I'm saying is, so that number that's in there, and it's spread throughout the budget, this is in addition to that?
Yes.
So again, this is a capital reserve fund, so this is again for an equipment, either need, capital need, or like a failure. So for instance, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, this last year or the last couple of years, we had a failure in our tractor that takes care of snow removal on the sidewalks, does a number of things around the whole district. I think our cost on that was, Dale? $60,000. So right now, our current balance is $72,000. So that one item nearly wiped out our equipment capital fund. The next year, we add back in to build it back up for a need of either a failure or an item that is ending its useful life and you have to replace it.
So, but there's a budget in that part of the budget, there's a budget for equipment. And that's for a different kind of equipment? I guess I'm trying to figure out why we have equipment, itemized throughout the budget, plus we have this additional fund for 50 grand.
Yeah, these are usually for larger items as opposed to, regular equipment or daily, annual equipment that you would use in a building. Usually smaller dollars, it just adds up because you're talking about number of pieces of equipment. This is more for larger pieces of equipment, similar of any capital budget for any organization that would have equipment or facility capital needs.
All right. All those in favor of placing Article 4 on the ballot, on the warrant as presented, I'll hold up your yes. You guys are so good at this. All right. All those opposed, please hold up your no. All right. The yeses have it. On to Article 5. Transfer from fund balance to district special education. Shall the Littleton School District vote to raise and appropriate up to the sum of $50,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund previously established in 1997, with this sum to come from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. No amount to be raised from additional taxation. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 5-0. Recommended by the Advisory Budget Committee 6-0.
So again, this would come out of the fund balance at the end to go directly into the special education fund. That fund currently has $245,000 in it now.
Are there any questions on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor of placing the article on? All your yes cards, thank you very much. All those opposed? All right, the yeses have it. And on to our last article, Article 6, establish open enrollment status to see if the Littleton School District shall vote to adopt the provisions of New Hampshire RSA Chapter 194D and become an open enrollment school under the terms of the RSA to admit 10 students, grade K through 12, from outside the Littleton School District in accordance to school policy with 0% of the resident student population eligible to seek enrollment outside of the Littleton School District. Majority vote required. Recommended by the school board 4-1. Recommended by the Advisory Budget Committee 7-0.
Sorry. So the purpose of this, the goal is really to allow the students to attend any public school. However, there are financial consequences to the district. So the school board decided that we wanted to put some sort of cap on there. We did have a special hearing on this. Wasn't very well attended at all, so we are going to just talk about it a little bit here. We wanted to set a limit, and we'll create a policy later with the specifics, but really we're limiting it to 10 students out of district to come here because we're financially responsible for 20% of the cost of the student to come here from another district. And we're voting to or recommending 0% of any of our students to go somewhere else so that we don't have to be financially responsible for it. the New Hampshire State Senate did just vote to move this ahead to the House. So all of this that we're talking about tonight and the hearing that we have could potentially mean nothing to us if they vote yes to put this into law effective before our March vote. We'll still put it on the ballot, but it may not really mean anything if the state decides before our vote. Questions? We're trying to protect ourselves at this point financially.
Okay, so if we have to pay 20% of what these other students, outside students that come in, why would we allow that?
What?
To allow open enrollment to admit 10 students from outside Littleton, right? And you said we have to pay 20% of that.
They would pay 80% to us, and we have to cover the additional.
Right, so the 20% would be covered by the taxpayer. So
Are
I
you
guess
saying
where
no?
I'm coming is.
Hold on, let the attorney clarify what I'm saying, I guess.
No, anyone coming into the district. Okay, I made it. Anyone coming into the district under an open enrollment school program as it's currently written would net the district 80% of the sending district's per pupil cost. So that's, you can decide whether or not that's a cost to the district or not, but it's not as if the district has to pay.
No, but we're spending money on these students, and it's not,
No,
it's
no,
even worse than what I understood her to say. Because it's 80, they'll just come with 80% of their own, and we have a particularly high cost per student.
That's not the way it works. The way it works is you receive 80% of the cost of the sending district's per pupil costs.
Right.
The district does not spend $29,000 for each student that's here. You have a number of students here. You have fixed costs based on everything that you've been discussing today. Things like teacher salaries, things like building maintenance, things like all the other things that you're talking about. Those are fixed costs. If one person leaves, you're not losing $29,000 in revenue. The idea that there's a tuition amount for going to public schools is one of the biggest misnomers in the state of New Hampshire. It's completely wrong. That's not the way municipal budgeting works for school districts. You pay a total sum of money in order to operate the schools, and then there's a calculation that allows you to determine what your pure pupil cost is so you can compare apples to apples around the state. So it's not that's the way it works. So it's not necessarily a cost. Certainly if you ended up receiving, how many kids did we say? It's 10? So if you receive 10 kids and they're all in the first grade and that necessitates you hiring another first grade teacher, that could be a cost to the district. But by the same token, you'd be receiving 10 times around $20,000 per pupil, and you'd have $200,000 of revenue. So you'd theoretically have the money to be able to pay for that. All right?
Okay, my next question is, and you might as well stay, sir, because it's kind of a legal thing, and that is, it seems really, I thought what I've read about this was it was like you're either in or out of the open enrollment. And what I see here is that we're half in and half out. We got 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Is that the way the law is written?
Yes.
You can do.
Right now, the current law allows you to determine how many students you will accept into the district and how many students you will allow to go from your district and be responsible for paying to go to other school districts.
Okay.
That's the way the law works.
You said now, and then I understand that there's some kind of a change possible?
Who knows?
Okay, so we'll have to address that when it happens.
Hang on to your legislative bulletins.
Well, there's so many other things that need to be dealt with, but whatever.
Yeah,
well, I meant with
I could go on and on and on if you'd like me to.
No, I'm just trying to figure this out, because I honestly didn't think you could be, 1 foot in and 1 foot out, but I guess you can, so.
Yes, you can.
Okay.
All right, is there any other discussion on the article? Seeing none, all those in favor of putting the article on the warrant, please hold up your yes cards. All right, thank you. All opposed, please hold up your nose. All right, the yeses have it. As that is the last article on the warrant, that concludes our meeting. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and I hope you have a great night. I'm being asked to remind everybody that Wednesday night is the town if you didn't have enough fun tonight.
Yeah. 48 hours, 46. Yeah, it was. Interesting discussion.